Hey friends, welcome or welcome back. My name is Shannon and I enjoy books and reading. A few weeks ago, I recorded a video going over all of the books that I had read in the month of July. However, things weren't going so well during the video. I was in a really bad mood. The neighbors next door were doing construction on their house, and so it was just really noisy. And then my partner was mowing the lawn, and then there was more noise, and it just made me even more cranky. I have absolutely no desire to re-record the video. So what I did was I pulled out sections of the video that are presentable, and that's what I'm going to show you today. So instead of all of the books that I read in July, which was about 9, I'm going to talk about only 3, which actually works out because the books that ended up being good portions of the video were the books that I really wanted to talk about anyway. So the rest of this video is going to be those portions that I filmed a couple weeks ago. Thank you so much for understanding, and I hope you enjoy. I am going to talk about The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I read this in preparation of seeing a production at the American Repertory Theater in Cambridge, Massachusetts. They were doing the world premiere of Gatsby, An American Myth. And because I had never read The Great Gatsby, I wanted to read it before I saw the production. The only thing I knew going into this was that there was a guy named Jay Gatsby and he loved a girl named Daisy, and there was this dude named Nick. That's literally all I knew. And that's because I deliberately have shied away from male American authors, specifically of this period. So I've never read Fitzgerald, I've never read Steinbeck, and I've never read Hemingway. And that was a deliberate thing on my part. I always figured I wouldn't like those authors because they were A, men, and B, American. And my choice of reading was always female and British and 19th, 18th, 17th century authors. That was what I generally was attracted to. So I didn't think I would be attracted to anyone named Fitzgerald, Steinbeck, or Hemingway. So I was pleasantly surprised that I actually enjoyed The Great Gatsby. I didn't think I would. I thought it was going to be a chore, but I really enjoyed it. His prose is beautiful. It really is beautiful. And I highlighted a whole bunch of passages in here. And, you know, it's a slim little book, so you can get through it really quickly. And it really is more than just some dude named Gatsby in love with some chick named Daisy. I don't know much about the themes of this book, but I do know there's a lot in here to explore. I have a feeling that this book is a lot about the American dream and just how it can really disappoint you. And yeah, sure, love is a part of this story, but I did feel this overwhelming disappointment. And so I'm wondering if that's one of the themes in here. I feel like this book also touched a teensy bit on homosexuality, because the guy Nick in here has this really ambiguous scene, and I wasn't exactly sure if that's what it was touching upon. And if you know, let me know, because I thought it was really different. And remember, this was written in the 20s. So it takes place in 1922. I think Fitzgerald wrote it in the late 20s. So very different time period. This is after the First World War. These men have come back home after fighting and they're just all busted up. I mean, the First World War really threw everyone for a loop. So, and that's where our narrator, Nick, he's home from the war. He's trying to find a job. He's, you know, trying to put his life back together, and then meets Jay Gatsby, you know, and things ensue. So I do feel like the American dream, post-World War I, men disappointed, men trying to find out where they sit in the world. And so I thought that that was an interesting theme. We have the theme of love, where Jay and Daisy at one time had been a couple. He went off to war. He didn't come back. She ended up marrying Tom Buchanan. Tom Buchanan was an interesting character. I wasn't exactly sure what Fitzgerald was trying to say. Fitzgerald made Tom a white supremacist, or at least he kept saying that they were reading these white supremacist books, and Daisy kept doing snide little remarks to Tom about her white childhood. Future Shannon jumping in here. I do want to clarify that the mentions of Tom's white supremacy didn't seem to further the story. So I wasn't sure if Fitzgerald was trying to make a statement here. So if you know, please let me know. I just wasn't understanding what Fitzgerald was trying to do with these references, if he was making a statement or if he was using that to make Tom look like a jerk, which he already did anyway. So I wasn't sure if that was needed, if that was his intention. Again, if you know, please let me know, because I really am interested to understand this book better. And then there was also another thing, which I don't know if it was intentional, and it was regarding a character in the book who was Jewish, and he described him in the stereotypical way that authors used to describe Jewish people. And I didn't know if that was an intentional thing, that Fitzgerald was using that device to give us this character of this person, or if he was just being a man of his time, and that's literally what everybody thought Jewish people acted and looked like. So there was a lot to unpack here, and I have to say, for such a slim little book, I found that fascinating. So I definitely plan on going back to this and exploring a little bit more, and maybe doing a little more reading about it. I did enjoy the book. I was very surprised I enjoyed the book, and I might actually pick up more from Fitzgerald. So shame on me for deliberately staying away from certain books because I didn't think I'd like them. I just never tried. So the play that I saw, which was Gatsby, an American musical by the American Repertory Theater, they took some liberties with the themes, I think. And because I don't know the book enough, I'm not exactly sure whether their interpretation of some of these characters was a good thing or a bad thing. I really don't know. They did give Daisy more of a voice and showed that she was complicit in her own life, really complicit in her own decisions, which I did find that interesting, because in the book it just seems like she's just being floating around, being passed around from, situation to situation and not making any decisions. Here in the musical, they made her complicit in her own decisions. That ambiguous scene that I told you about with Nick, whether I was trying to determine whether he was gay or not, they explicitly did that in the play. They basically showed that scene and made it explicit that if he wasn't gay, he was exploring his sexuality. So I thought that was interesting. The music was completely forgettable. I don't remember a darn song in it. The set was absolutely gorgeous. I could not get pictures because they actually locked up all our phones before we went in. And I was like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Who the hell gives a damn? But then I found out that the reason they did that is because the person who wrote the music, I don't know if she wrote the lyrics, was Florence Welch from Florence and the Machine. So they were trying to keep this from getting out, because this is only in previews. It's not on Broadway. This is just starting out here in Boston, and maybe it'll go to Broadway later on. I don't know. So music was completely forgettable. The play, it was fine. I probably won't go see it again if it does go to Broadway. But it was interesting to see the interpretation, and I really am glad that I read The Great Gatsby before I saw the musical, because then I could see how the interpretation was different. Next is Big Swiss by Jen Beagin. In this story, we are following Greta, who is a transcriptionist for a local sex therapist. This is a small town in New York, and basically everybody in the town seems to visit this sex therapist. She doesn't know exactly the names of the people who visit, but she does recognize their voices. So when she runs into them in the town, grabbing coffee, she can tell exactly who is who. She becomes obsessed with one particular patient whom she calls Big Swiss, who is a female patient who is suffering from some pretty severe past trauma. Greta herself also is suffering from some past trauma. The two of them meet and then embark upon an affair. These characters in this book are very interesting. I don't want to say unlikable, but they do unlikable things. I can't say that I was really rooting for anyone in this story, but it was funny. And I have to say that Jen Beagin must have a chip on her shoulder for the small town, New York town that she lives in, because she was making fun of it so hard, and it was pretty hilarious. Greta herself also has some pretty severe past trauma that she just is doing nothing to work through. This book touches upon infidelity, mental illness, and sexual identity. Greta, I did like. I just felt like she really, really needed to step up and do something to help herself. And entering into an affair with a patient of her employer is probably not the way to go about it. Big Swiss, on the other hand, deals with things very differently, and she's almost very cold about things. Even though she's seeing this therapist to try and help her situation, she can be very cold. And the two of them together make a very interesting couple. I can't say I loved this book, but I did enjoy it. Next, I finished Little Women Letters to Laurie, the Alcott family correspondence with Alfred Whitman, 1858 to 1891, edited by Liz Adams. So I had been reading this for a couple of months. Basically, I just read one letter each morning with my coffee. And this book is a compilation of letters from the Alcott sisters, Louisa May Alcott, who wrote Little Women. All of the sisters wrote to this man named Alfred Whitman, who partially inspired Laurie from Little Women. According to one of Louisa's letters in here, Laurie was inspired by two people, this man, Alfred Whitman, and a man that Louisa had met in Europe, a Polish man. I can't remember his name. So she actually wrote that in one of her letters to Alfred, saying, I hope you don't mind, but Laurie is based upon 50% you. You are the sober, quiet half, where the Polish guy that she met in Europe was the lively and hectic half of Laurie. And these letters are just a really long correspondence with this boy who was in Concord for only a year, but he developed such a close relationship with the Alcotts and the Pratts being the family that the oldest Alcott sister married into, John Pratt, who inspired John Brooke of Little Women. And it's just these letters to Alfred. We don't get Alfred's responses, but we do get all of the letters to Alfred. So there's some from Louisa, there's some from Anna, there's some from Abby. So Abby would be Amy from Little Women. Anna would be the oldest sister, Meg, from Little Women. Elizabeth, who was Beth, had already passed away by this point. And you also have some letters from John Pratt, which, if I have to say, are actually my favorite letters. John Pratt was a beautiful writer, and he just seemed like such an honest and kind man. And he would write these beautiful letters to Alfred talking about his life and how he wasn't exactly happy with his job, but he absolutely loved his wife and his children. And he thought marriage was one of the most wonderful things he had ever embarked upon. And just these absolutely beautiful letters. Louisa's letters were just as you expected them. They're very short and flippant and funny. And Abby's letters, who was Amy in Little Women, were just as I expected them as well, because she was a younger girl when she started writing to him, and she was just a whiny little brat talking about her finery, and she's going ice skating and all the balls and all the boys she's flirting with. It was just exactly what you would expect the Little Women to be writing. It was really, really enjoyable. I do recommend this. So there weren't that many letters from Louisa in here because she was very busy. She was writing, trying to make money, and she was very successful. And there's a lot of letters in here from other people in the Alcott family apologizing to Alfred. Sorry that Louisa isn't writing to you. She's just so tired after writing all day. She doesn't want to even write letters. So not a whole lot of letters from Louisa in here. So I would like to pick up something that focuses more on Louisa's writing, her journals, other letters. This just gave me a taste of Louisa, but John Pratt's letters are wonderful. Anna Pratt, who is Anna Alcott, her letters were beautiful, and I did enjoy Abby's letters as well, even though sometimes I just wanted to slap her because she was just being a little brat. Highly recommend if you're interested in Louisa May Alcott. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for your understanding, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.